Okay, no, Nicole. So, a good essay so far. Clear introduction here. Produced, though, is that the correct word? Perhaps written would be a better way of describing it. Explores the Roaring Twenties, unprecedented economic prosperity following World War One. Fitzgerald named this period the Jazz Age. The 20s were responsible for the evolution of jazz music. However, Gatsby criticised the 20s due to the debilitating effects of materialism, capitalism, and commodification. Excellent summary of the 20s there. This enabled the bourgeoisie to exploit the proletarians. Is that the correct word? You might well be right there. I'm not too sure. I would just say the proletariat generally rather than the proletarians, but you may be right. Creating disparity between the classes, presenting a Marxist ideology. Within the novel, the proletariat reside in the Valley of the Ashes, while the bourgeoisie are located in East and West Egg. Good. This essay shall explore how the Valley of the Ashes and its inhabitants present a Marxist ideology. Brilliant, you've linked it back to the essay title within that first introduction, and you've not wasted any time necessarily there. Brilliant. The Marxist description of the Valley of Ashes expresses the struggles between the working class. A valley is usually healthy, vibrant, and full of vegetation. However, the noun ashes reveals that it is corrupt, as ashes remain after the substance has been burnt and usually symbolise death. Absolutely brilliant. I hadn't thought of that analysis to do with valley, so very good. Fitzgerald uses juxtaposition when the ashes grow into grotesque gardens. Now, that is interesting. I hadn't spotted that at all. Gardens are associated with wildlife and flowers, but if the garden is grotesque, the landscape is repulsive and distorted, suggesting the beauty of the valley has now been destroyed. Brilliant analysis there of the language used. Furthermore, Fitzgerald describes everything within the valley as grey, including George Wilson, one of the inhabitants. There is a line of grey cars, there are ash-grey men, whilst Wilson's suit is covered with white ash and dust. This represents all of the hardships the proletariat faced in the 20s, because the valley is where the bourgeoisie dump all of their industrial waste, leaving the working class to live in a decaying environment. As the working class reside in a wasteland, this reveals that the upper class perceive them as worthless. In fact, Fitzgerald based the valley on the Corona ash dumps, also known as the Flushing River, which was being filled with horse manure and ashes from coal-burning furnaces. Overall, Fitzgerald highlights the immoral nature of the bourgeoisie in 1920s America, who used their wealth to conceal how their lavish lifestyle impacted on those inferior to them. This last bit here is very good, and it does link this section of the paragraph to this essay title, but it is the only real mention of bourgeoisie and doesn't perhaps explicitly link into Marxism, which is what you need to do. So perhaps a little bit more explicit here in how it links to Marxism might be better. In addition, it is apparent the characters within the text live in a capitalist society, a convention of Marxist ideology. Capitalism is where investors are able to buy, sell, produce. Fitzgerald's characters are completely obsessed with money. Good. As this secures their status and ensures they are respected. George and Myrtle Wilson, the working class, are victims of capitalism, while the hubristic character, interesting vocabulary, of Tom Buchanan benefits from capitalism. The Wilsons are unable to succeed in the capitalistic society because the only way to be wealthy is by being prosperous through a market. George owns a failing car garage, while Myrtle is Tom's mistress. These characters are negative stereotypes of the working class. Good. It would be good to say that they also are completely obsessed with money, to the point where George Wilson constantly talks to Tom Buchanan about wanting to have his car, and Myrtle Wilson constantly wants the apartment, the dog, and Tom himself. Clearly, Fitzgerald is expressing approval of socialism. Brilliant. Well, do you think... No, I'm thinking about that actually, and I'm not entirely sure. You're not necessarily wrong, but does he necessarily approve of socialism? Is he actually criticising the capitalist society, or is he simply showing it? I'm not too sure. What do you think? That might be worth considering if you ever did sort of return to this topic. I'm not necessarily right. I just think it needs a little bit more explanation than his disapproving of capitalism and approving of socialism, if that makes sense. Fitzgerald uses Marxism to criticise capitalist societies throughout commodification. Again, watch the use of the word criticise or approve. I'm not entirely sure. It would need a further exploration. Commodification is where goods or services are transformed into something which is valuable. Fitzgerald demonstrates commodification through Buchanan, the most affluent character in the novel. In order to highlight the egotistical mindset of the bourgeoisie, Fitzgerald ensures Tom Buchanan values people as commodities, so the proletarians, again, proletariat possibly, recognise the social status of the wealthy. Tom's dominance is developed by Fitzgerald through his extramarital affair with Myrtle Wilson, a proletarian who yearns for a life of luxury. Good to link in here with the idea that she is also completely obsessed with commodities. As Myrtle is subordinate to Tom, she is commodified. That's interesting. She herself becomes a commodity. In exchange for sexual favours, Myrtle believes Tom will marry her. Furthermore, when Fitzgerald married Tom and Daisy, Daisy exchanged her beauty for Tom's power. Fitzgerald ensures Daisy accepts Tom's gift of $350,000 worth of pearls to illustrate Daisy's commodification. Additionally, the corruption of the bourgeoisie is illustrated when Fitzgerald sacrifices Gatsby to George Wilson, who is exploited by Tom. Tom treats George as a commodity because Gatsby's death, caused by George, secures Tom's relationship with Daisy. Evidently, commodification within the novel expresses how the bourgeoisie take advantage of those subordinate to them to increase their power. Good. Furthermore, good connective, showing that your essay is structured and links together. American Dream within capitalist society demonstrates the oppression. American Declaration of Independence states that they are created equal, unalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. However, the American dream is corrupted within the novel of Fitzgerald's characters who believe wealth is the secret to achieving success. Characters who... Oh no, you are right there. Ignore me. Fitzgerald displays the corruption of the American dream through the Wilsons, a married couple who face social discrimination due to their being working class, but fantasise about having a sumptuous lifestyle. Good. Both George's and Myrtle's dream are based on the bourgeoisie. Hard-working nature of the proletariat is demonstrated by Fitzgerald as George is determined to make a living in the Valley of the Ashes, the novel's most deprived area. Fitzgerald represents the working class desire to climb the social ladder through associating with the bourgeoisie. Objects such as the copy of Town Tattle and a moving picture magazine accentuate the fascination that the proletariat have with materialistic goods which the bourgeoisie own, thus illustrating their hunger for the prosperous lifestyle. Very good analysis there. However, this is a corrupt representation of the American dream, whilst George symbolises the working class who are committed to earning an honest lifestyle. Myrtle represents those who resort to immoral measures to become a member of the upper class. Undoubtedly, Fitzgerald's portrayal of the American dream allows audience to understand how it could be achieved honestly and dishonestly. Interesting point there. You might want to go into perhaps more detail about the honesty and dishonesty of the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. Are either more or less honest? That could be something to go into more detail with. Good conclusion to end. You are certainly well into the word count, which is brilliant, and overall that is a very impressive novel. Just watch when you state what the author believed, i.e. that he was criticising something, because it's not necessarily perfectly clear and you need to be careful of phrasing that. Overall, well done.